Okay, well done for completing the essential tasks for the workshop and for choosing to do the extended task as well. So as I've said, I want to show you a way of utilizing Excel to give you the same answers that we have here, but using a function rather than having to manually count things the way we've done previously. Now, as I've said before, Excel uses the equal sign, and it has loads of different functions for things that you can do. And one thing I want to show you in this extra extension task is how to use the help function in Excel and how useful that function can be. So what we're doing here essentially is we're counting contents in cells. Okay, we want to know how many times the word agree occurred and how many times the word no preference requirement occurred. And that is essentially just counting content within the cells. And if you want to know how to do something in Excel, the help function is really, really good. So we can just input here, counting contents of cells. Okay, and you just go to get help on, and it already makes loads of suggestions as to what you can do. You can go to sort of a more general page on the help, in the help functionality of Excel, or you can go to specific functions straight away. Now, the one I want to show you today is the count if function, because it, as it says here, it will count cells based on the text. It won't count cells based on background or color, but it does it in terms of the content of the cells. So if you click on that, it opens the help tab, and it should then show you exactly how to use this specific function. It gives you examples, it gives you video tutorials, so in addition to the ones that I produce, you can use these. It gives you example data you can paste and that you can try stuff with. So I really just want to encourage you to use the help function in Excel, and if this doesn't have the answer, then a forum will, okay? So if you Google your problem and you put MS Excel, then you will usually find a lot of answers online as well. So if you're stuck with Excel, just don't be shy to try and find the answers using the internet. So the function we want to use today is COUNTIF, and essentially what it does is it wants to know where do you want to look and what do you want to look for. So it counts how many cells contain a certain criterion. So in this case, for example, we want to know how many cells contain the words no preference requirement within the people who have answered the first question with agree. Okay, and the way to do that is to type equals, like always, COUNTIF, and then open a bracket, and then you insert the range that you want to look for, and then the criterion that you're looking for as well in inverted commas. Okay, so I'll close this down and I'll show you how that works. So previously we've counted this manually and we've just typed the number 29 into this cell. Instead, this time I want to type equals and then COUNTIF, open bracket, okay, and then I'm saying I want to count in all of the cells which are in the rows with people who have answered the first question with agree. Okay, we want to know within agree how many chose this. Okay, so I'm going to highlight all of the cells where the people have answered agree. Okay, so all the way down to here. Okay, the last person that has answered question 1 with agree. And then if you look at the actual prompt that you're getting here, it's telling you now in bold that after you've given the range, you need to insert a comma. Okay, that's there. So it wants a comma, and now it's telling you it wants to know the criteria. So what are you looking for? And we're looking for the words no preference requirement, and they have to go into inverted commas. So on your keyboard, that's Shift and number 2. Okay, the double inverted commas there. It's not the apostrophe, which is underneath the @ sign on your keyboard. So don't use that. Use Shift and 2. And then you want to type what you're looking for. Okay, make sure you don't make any spelling mistakes, but it doesn't matter whether you use capital letters or non-caps. Okay, so no preference requirement, and then inverted commas again, close bracket, enter, and you have the number 29 just like before. Okay, now if you wanted to do that for the rest of the cells, you could either type it again here, so we could go again, COUNTIF, highlight the range we want, okay, all the ones where people have answered with agree, comma, inverted commas, and then this time we want vegetarian, inverted commas closed, close brackets, and enter. Okay, but what we can also do is we can use Excel's functionality that I've showed you before, which is to drag the contents or the formulas of cells across into other cells using this little box at the bottom right corner of the cell. And if you hover over that, you get this little plus sign here. Now, if I just press that and I drag this cell across, what will happen is it will actually insert the formula that I've created here into this cell, but it doesn't just drag the formula across, it also changes the selection that I've made. Okay, so previously in this cell here, I had selected this range in column E. Okay, in this cell, because I've dragged it across now, oops, it has shifted that selection one column over because I have shifted my formula all over by one column. If I go the other way, okay, so if I drag this down, what it does is it takes over all of the wording that I've used, but it shifts my selection down by one. Okay, so up here the selection was from cell E2, sorry, and then in this one it's gone to E3. And the same has happened at the bottom. Okay, so it's moved everything down by one. Now sometimes that can be very useful, and we will come across at times when we will use that function. But in our case right now, it's actually a problem, and we don't want that to happen. And the best way to avoid that happening is to lock in place our range selection. And in Excel, that is done using the $sign. Okay, so if you want to, like I said, the columns are called A through to Z, and the rows are in numbers. And if you want to lock the selection in place for the column, because you're going to move vertically, you put a $sign in front of the E. Okay, and you do the same for the one below. And now, if you drag this across, it won't change the selection. Okay, same works if you want to drag this down. Okay, so if you put the $sign in front of the number, which is for the row, and the same down here, and now you drag your formula down, the selection stays the same. Okay, and now all you need to do is you change what you were looking for, essentially. Okay, because here you're not looking for no preference requirement, you're looking for vegetarian. Okay, the other thing here, obviously you're not actually using this range, so we want to either get rid of the column before, or we can just type the other selection, or we can get rid of this whole thing and just highlight the cells that we're looking for, because this is where people have answered the first question with disagree instead. Okay, so now we have the correct selection here, and again we can now lock this in place to make sure it stays in column E, and we can drag this across. Okay, and then just change our selection, our criterion, to vegetarian instead. Okay, and there we go. And then you can keep going. You can do this for all of the other ones as well. Vegan in this case, and so on. And there you have it. So that's a bit more of an advanced function to do exactly the same thing that we did before. But once you know what you're doing, it'll be much quicker than first sorting the data and then having to highlight all the cells, especially if you consider how many different options you have, how many different answer categories you have within each variable. Okay, now one other thing, and that's in the next video if you want to look into that, is when you have this really complex kind of data that we have here, where we have you know, very many options, many different categories in 2 different variables, we can actually use something called a pivot table in Excel, and I'm going to show you how to do that. This literally takes 2 seconds in the next video, and that is even quicker than what I've just showed you.